as y'all know, the board has to be elected. We can't just appoint ourselves and say, hey, I'm the president. So the nominating committee is the one that we take the enrollment list and we talk to people and say, are you interested in being in the board of directors? Do you want to pursue any other leadership position within NAWIC? And we get everybody's information together, a picture of their bio. There are some minimum requirements of how long you have to be in NAWIC, so we make sure that they meet those and put together a solid plate of people to run for the board of directors. So the board of directors is composed of 4 directors and 4 executive, I guess you could call it, the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. And what we did was, starting around February, we got a hold of that list and started talking about who could we approach, who would want to be on this committee, because at the time it was just me and I hadn't done it before, so I didn't know what to do. So I started contacting some people and sent out some emails and got the committee together, and we started reaching out to membership to see who would want to be on the board of directors. We compiled all the bios and photos together and had a wonderful former NAWIC member put all that together. She had done it the year before and enjoyed it and didn't mind doing it again. So she put that all together for us. And a lot of this committee is communication. You call, you email, you follow up, you answer questions, just give out general ideas and information about what the board does, because at the beginning of the year you don't know who's going to be leading the board towards the end of the year, during that second part of the year. So it's more about what the board represents and what they can do, and board of directors. I lost my thought. Sorry, I squirreled there for a minute. So we gathered all the names together, put it together. This year was different. Normally we have a big membership meeting, our monthly meeting, and we do a big vote, and everyone has a tally sheet, and the nominating committee is there to tally everything, and if there's a tie, they have to be ready with extra stuff. There's a whole process to that. But this year we had to actually change our bylaws so that we could vote by mail, because we weren't allowed to meet in person, and so that took some extra time. But really the hard work is in the communication, those couple of months of before the voting happens, getting everybody together and seeing who wants to run, who's interested in running. Sometimes you got to be the one that tells you you've done your time on the board, you have to move off the board, and so the committee really looks for those people who are wanting a more active role in NAWIC. And then at the June meeting is when the voting happens. This year it was a mail-in, so what we ended up doing was meeting at a restaurant and opening the ballots there and counting them there and presenting them at that next meeting. Doesn't take a lot of work, takes a lot of time, a lot of emails, but I just made a generalized email and put some information about what I liked about the board and what I enjoyed about NAWIC, and was able to help recruit our current board plus some who didn't make it on the board, but hopefully will be still very active in NAWIC.
Talk about how that it's kept confidential and no names. So there's no names associated with the ballots, so you don't know who voted for whom.
Oh, no, there's no way to track that. When we're in person, it's, there's no names written on the ballot. So what we did this last year, as mail-in ballots, in case we have to do it next year, is we um, we had the spreadsheets of all of our members, and we had them numbered in a particular order, and we wrote the numbers on the back of so say if I was number 3, what I got in the mail was a paper with the number 3 on the back. I wouldn't know what it means, but should we ever, or we looked at the numbers to make sure there was no duplicate, so that nobody voted twice. We also looked to make sure, in case there was a recount and we had to request those people to vote again, we could. The person that held on to that list was Nicole, because as the outgoing president, she wasn't going to be on the board next year, or what is this year. So there's layers and layers of confidentiality. I didn't open the ballots by myself. There were 2 other people that opened the ballots with me. All of us counted them, came up with the same numbers, recounted them. There really it's all confidential. There's no way to know who voted for who. There's no way to know, other than if you're on the committee. If someone said, I really want to, but I really don't, or they were interested and then they backed off, that is something that we're not going to share. So, because we don't want them pressured to doing something they don't want to do. It's just very confidential. It's very, as a ballot process should be, very secretive as far as who you're voting for. That's about it. It's very not heavily regulated, but how to do it is spelled out in our handbook as well as the national handbook. So a lot of rules to follow, but it's not a difficult committee to be a part of, and you make a very big impact with your work in those few months, because you impact the entire NAWIC chapter for the whole next year by who you put on the board, or not who you put on the board, but who gets elected to the board, and you have a piece of that. In committee, I like rules. I like to know what I can and can't do, and so one reason the nominating committee appealed to me. I cannot run it for next year, so Jennifer Camargo is going to be running that. She has all that information. So if you know anybody that's interested for next year, you start talking to her. One of the best ways is to get involved with a committee, and there's other committees that are heavy presence, like Block Kids is about to get busy doing their stuff, and so if you want a committee that you do a lot of stuff in the fall and then a lot of stuff in the spring, you can do Block Kids in the fall. You can be on more than one committee. You can do Block Kids in the fall. You can do nominating in the spring. It's one of the great things about this organization. There's always something going on with some committee.
And that's so very true. Thanks, Ashley.